Just wanted to ask you about Venezuela. There's been tensions have been increasing with Guyana on their border after the referendum in Venezuela on the neighbouring region. Brazil's military is now sort of now reinforced in the area. Just wondered what your assessment of the situation is there, and how concerned are you about it at this stage?
It's concerning. We're watching this very, very, very closely. As I said, I think last week, the arbitral decision needs to be respected. We obviously don't want to see any violence occur here or conflict occur. And we're obviously in touch with all our partners.
Thanks, Kareem. Thanks, Admiral. So on Monday, NSA Jake Sullivan said that the U.S. is in talks to establish a naval task force to ensure the safety of commercial vessels in the Red Sea. Has there been any additional progress on that? When would that task force be expected to begin, and which allies and partners have said they will participate?
We're still working through the modalities of all that. What Jake also said was it would be built out of an existing maritime task force that reports up to the 5th Fleet Commander in Bahrain. Who is the naval component for U.S. Central Command. So there's already an existing organization here. What we're talking about is directing them to conduct operations perhaps in different areas and for different purposes, and so there's already international support baked in to this task force, and certainly we will talk to partners in the region about whether they want to be additive to it, if they want to be to join it. But I don't have any updates from after Jake announced it.
Just a couple of logistical questions on the aid that you were talking about at the beginning. As these U.S. aircraft are coming in, what is the level of trucks that are able to cross sort of now versus the couple of hundred a day during the pause? What's the comparison?
And it's getting worse every day.
Well, we reached about 200 or so per day during the pause, and that's the goal right now. I don't have the figures for the last 24 hours, but we just had some representatives on the ground out there. Ambassador Power was there. Our Chief of Staff of the NSC, Curtis Reed, was out there, and they came back just a day or so ago and reported that there's a lengthy line of trucks that are waiting for inspection to get in, hundreds of trucks waiting to get in. So it's not for lack of stuff, and it's not for lack of trucks. It really is the inspection regime and making sure that you can get the trucks in safely, since the southern part of Gaza now is much more a zone of conflict.
You had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that one of the challenges, at least initially with getting the aid in, was that Hamas controlled that side of the Rafah crossing. Is that still the case? Is Hamas in control still of the Rafah gate, or is IDF playing a role now on that side?
As far as I know, they still have a measure of control there, but there's an inspection regime that really is the sort of the long pole in the tent.
He's got you there, big guy.
So that we can make sure what's going in is legitimate humanitarian assistance.
Thank you, Karine. The Israeli army spokesman said that the ratio of killing a Hamas fighter is equivalent to 2 civilians. That means if Hamas has 35,000, that means 70,000 civilians could be killed. Is this rate acceptable? He said actually it's a positive rate. Is this acceptable to the U.S.? And second, John, if you allow me, also the Israelis saying that 15,000 Palestinians have been killed, which is more or less mirror what the Ministry of Health said. So would you take now what the Palestinians said as credible kind of figure?
I can't verify the numbers. And the right number of civilian casualties is 0.
Okay, well, the first question about the ratio.
That's the answer to both your questions. I can't. The right number of civilian casualties is 0. I'm not going to speak to the ratio that the IDF is putting out there. The right number of civilian casualties is 0, and I can't verify the 15,000 number.
I heard that somewhere.
We've said many, many thousands have been killed.
Thank you, Marian. Admiral, is the Lebanese army that is supported by the U.S., we receive millions of dollars over the years of military aid. Is it part of the war? Is it part of the conflict? Because Israelis carried an attack against a Lebanese army base in south of Lebanon and killed some soldiers. Is it acceptable?
I didn't follow the first part of your question.
Israeli airstrike carried an attack against Lebanese army base in the south. Is it acceptable?
I'll let, as I've said many times before, I'll let the Israeli Defense Forces speak to their airstrikes, to their military operations.
Lebanese army? Is
I will let them,
part of the conflict?
I will let them speak to their operations. And I'm not going to armchair quarterback their operations here from this podium. We're going to make sure that they have the security assistance they need to defend themselves.
What are you saying?
So the UN expressed that there is no safe zones in the south, and now Israel is encouraging people to move more to the south. So is it a collective punishment again? And we're going to see more civilians dying in the south because there is no safe zones?
We don't want to see a single more civilian killed. We don't want to see a single more civilian injured. We don't want to see damage to civilian infrastructure like hospitals. And we have made that case, and we'll continue to make that case to our Israeli counterparts.
But you don't want to see, but nothing is changing on the ground. The CNN producer lost 9 members of his family today. Killing journalists, over 60 journalists died on the ground, even in South Lebanon. They're not a target, they were clearly journalists. What's really happening? So if we call Hamas a designated terrorist group killing civilians as a non-sector player, is it also Israel acting like a terror state, killing humans, civilians, unarmed people, journalists every day?
No.
So again, we don't want to see civilian casualties. And sorry, just one more point. It's okay. I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but Hamas deliberately slaughtered and murdered some 1,200 people on the 7th of October. And it seems like we're all willing to forget that. Deliberately. It was their intent. And to take hostages. That was the purpose of the whole thing on the 7th. Now, we've been very honest with our Israeli counterparts. We want them to be careful, cautious, deliberate. We don't want to see any more civilians harmed on this. But they have a right and a responsibility to defend themselves against that very genocidal threat. And it is not the Israeli Defense Forces' strategy to kill innocent people. It's happening, I admit that. Each one's a tragedy. But it's not like the Israelis are sitting around every morning and saying, hey, how many more civilians can we kill today?
I said, what? She said, yeah. I said, no.
Let's go bomb a school or a hospital or a residential building and cause civilian casualties. They're not doing that. They're trying to go after Hamas, and it's a very difficult task. When Hamas, oh by the way, in addition to deliberately slaughtering people, is deliberately hiding themselves in residential buildings, in hospitals, in tunnels, putting the innocent people of Gaza directly in the crossfire. Now you tell me, is that right?
Is that right? Please, sorry.
I think we got to move on.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry. They killed a colleague of mine. She was reporting.
Jenny,
She was.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, John. I have 2 questions. You may have seen this report in North Korea transshipped 10,000 containers to Russia yesterday, and whether this is weapons or ammunition. How do you think this will affect Putin's war in Ukraine? And second question, this weekend the U.S. and South Korea and Japan national security advisors meeting in South Korea.
Yeah.
What will be the main topic discussed at this meeting?
Mr. Sullivan's very much looking forward to this trip to Seoul to meet with both his South Korean and Japanese counterparts. And I think I don't want to get ahead of Jake, but I think you can expect a robust agenda of discussions of regional issues of mutual concern, particularly in the security environment.
I looked it up in the dictionary. It's not in there.
I know that Jake is looking forward to having discussions with both of those leaders about how we can build on the Camp David agreement and really try to improve our trilateral cooperation as well as bilateral cooperation between the Republic of Korea and Japan. On your first question, I haven't seen those reports, so I can't specifically talk about this shipment, but I have talked about many times our concerns about North Korea providing artillery shells, for instance, to the Russian military and making it easier for them to kill Ukrainians.